Welcome back to CIA Declassified. We are navigating the turbulent waters of the 1950s and 60s. Japan is a nation caught between its imperial past and an uncertain democratic future. While the skyscrapers of Tokyo begin their ascent, the universities are a battlefield. The Radical Student Federation, Zen-ga-kuren, is sweeping through campuses with a militancy that terrifies both the Japanese government and the American occupation. They aren't just protesting tuition, they are protesting the very soul of the US-Japan alliance. In Langley, the assessment is grim. If the youth of Japan fall to the Marxist-Leninist tide, the strongest anti-communist center in Asia will crumble from within. The agency needed a way to fight fire with fire, not with police batons, but with charismatic pro-Western leaders who could reclaim the narrative of the Japanese youth. This was the quiet war for the lecture halls. This was JGCLUB. How did this operation get its name? The designation JGCLUB utilized the agency's JG diagraph, which was assigned to projects related to political action and student movements within the Japan theater. The second half, club, was chosen as a semantic cover. It allowed agency handlers to discuss budgets and meetings in declassified or semi-secure logs under the guise of funding social clubs or academic societies. The name reflected the operational goal to build a literal club of elite, influential student leaders who would act as a private fraternity of anti-communist influence, effectively a counter-society to the radical student unions. JGCLUB wasn't just a subsidy, it was a master class in clandestine social engineering. The JGCLUB project was a covert political action program designed to penetrate Japanese universities and establish pro-Western student organizations. A quote from a declassified 1958 status report. The objective is to create a moderate, responsible student leadership capable of challenging the emotional appeal of the radical left without appearing as puppets of the state. End quote. Records show that JGCLUB provided leadership training grants, sending promising Japanese students to international conferences in Europe and the US to build a global network of anti-communist youth. Documentation confirms that the agency funded the creation of alternative campus newspapers, providing high-quality printing presses and paper, a luxury at the time, to pro-Western student groups. The program utilized discrete scholarships where students were funded through seemingly independent Japanese business foundations that were, in reality, conduits for CIA capital. A quote from a declassified field office memorandum. We must emphasize Japanese nationalism. If the students believe they are fighting for Japan's independence from Soviet influence, they will be 10 times more effective. End quote. Internal ledgers show that JGCLUB paid for organizer stipends, allowing student leaders to focus entirely on building anti-communist student unions. The agency organized summer retreats in the Japanese countryside where students were briefed on the realities of communist expansion away from the watchful eyes of radical campus spies. Logs indicate that the CIA provided logistical support for counter-protest, including the production of professional-grade banners and loud hailers to drown out the Zen-ga-kuren rallies. Technical files reveal the use of encrypted courier pouch services to move instructions and funds from the Tokyo station to student organizers without detection by local police or rival unions. The project established reading rooms in major cities like Kyoto and Osaka, stocked with Western literature and pro-democracy pamphlets. Records prove the CIA utilized psychological profiling to identify students who were ideologically flexible and could be groomed for future roles in the Japanese Diet. A quote from a declassified 1961 analysis. The battle is for the middle ground student. By isolating the radicals, we make the JG Club-supported unions the voice of the majority. End quote. The agency coordinated with the Asia Foundation, which acted as a primary legal cover for the disbursement of JG Club funds. Internal memos show that student leaders were given security briefings on how to detect and avoid honey trap recruitment attempts by Soviet agents. The project funded the Mincedo rivals, groups that, while socialist, were opposed to the violent Trotskyite factions favored by Moscow. Documentation shows that JG Club used alumni networks to ensure that its student leaders were placed in high-ranking positions in Japanese media and industry after graduation. A quote from a declassified 1964 budget review: "Every yen spent on a student leader today is 1,000 yen saved on a counterinsurgency operation tomorrow." End quote. The agency provided crisis management training to help student unions handle the fallout from violent clashes on campus. Technical memos detail the use of invisible ink communication kits given to top-tier student assets to relay information about radical planned riots. The program sponsored English language competitions, which served as a filtering mechanism to find students interested in Western cultural alignment. Records confirm that the CIA operated safe apartments near major universities where JG Club leaders could meet with agency handlers in private. Field reports confirm that the agency distributed free vinyl records of American jazz and rock and roll to JG Club members to associate Western politics with cultural coolness. A quote from a declassified 1959 operational directive: "The students' desire for modernity is our greatest asset. The Soviets offer only the drudgery of the collective." End quote. The CIA underwrote the travel cost for Japanese student athletes to attend international meetings, ensuring the faces of Japanese youth were pro-Western. Internal documents reveal that JG Club subsidized the Zen Nichi Gakuren Federation as a direct moderate competitor to the radical left-wing unions. The agency provided secretarial support to student unions, placing CIA-vetted stenographers in union offices to monitor internal communications. Records indicate the CIA utilized Japanese labor union leaders as mentors for JG Club students to ground them in anti-communist organizational tactics. A quote from a declassified 1962 memo: "A successful campus strike averted is a victory as significant as any intelligence haul from a dead drop." End quote. The agency funded debating societies where the topics were subtly skewed toward the benefits of the free market economy and the U.S. security umbrella. Logs describe the midnight briefings held at the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, where JG Club leaders were given real-time data on Soviet agitators active in their specific schools. The project utilized a network of safe phone lines hidden in public kiosks to allow student assets to report on the Zengakuren activities without being followed. The CIA provided technical bursaries for engineering students, creating a core of pro-Western technologists in the burgeoning Japanese electronics industry. A quote from a declassified 1960 agent evaluation: "Subject has a natural gift for oratory. With proper JG Club polishing, he will dominate the Waseda Student Senate by spring." End quote. The agency hired professional speechwriters to ghostwrite the manifestos of anti-communist student groups, ensuring they used the local vernacular effectively. Documentation confirms that JG Club purchased advertisement space in mainstream Japanese newspapers to promote student for peace movements that were CIA-backed. Records show that the agency staged inter-university exchanges between JG Club members to create a unified national front against radicalism. The CIA utilized medical scholarships to recruit students in health sciences, who would then serve as first aid coordinators during student riots to gather intelligence on injured radicals. A quote from a declassified 1963 budget justification: "We are not buying the votes, we are buying the minds that will eventually cast the votes." End quote. The project maintained a black book of radical students to ensure JG Club leaders knew exactly who to target for ideological isolation on campus. Internal memos describe the use of subliminal messaging posters in student dormitories, emphasizing the prosperity of West Germany versus the poverty of the East. The agency provided relocation grants for JG Club members who were physically threatened or doxxed by radical leftist groups. Records confirm that the CIA operated a secret publishing house in Tokyo that produced Japanese translations of George Orwell specifically for student distribution. Documentation shows that JG Club used parent-teacher conduits to reassure Japanese families that the anti-communist unions were the safer choice for their children's future careers. Technical logs confirm the agency provided student assets with flash paper for sensitive meeting agendas that could be ignited instantly if the room were breached. Records indicate the JG Club funded campus coffee houses to serve as low-profile hubs for anti-communist recruiting and organization. The CIA utilized international youth festivals as a cover to extract high-performing JG Club assets for advanced psychological and leadership training in clandestine sites. Documents reveal that JG Club provided funding for anti-communist manga to simplify complex geopolitical arguments for younger students. The agency established a legal defense fund specifically for JG Club members who were arrested during university occupations. A quote from a declassified 1966 internal audit: "The investment in JG Club has created a sustainable counter-elite within the Japanese academic structure." End quote. Records show that the CIA influenced the curriculum of certain private universities to include more pro-Western political science courses. The agency utilized student travel agencies as front companies to move assets across Asia for regional student conferences. If you look at the declassified JG Club folders, the heaviest redactions occur in the section titled Category 4, Direct Action Coordination and Paramilitary Linkages. Actually, this file contains the most redactions in the entire project archive, suggesting the student shield had a much sharper edge than a debate club. Some dark whispers from the Tokyo underground suggest that those black bars aren't just protecting names, they're protecting a history of violence. There is a chilling speculation that the agency didn't just fund debaters, they recruited enforcers. The theory suggests that the JG Club security details were actually student assault teams trained in close quarters combat to physically purge radical protesters from university gates. If you talk to the survivors of the 60s protest, you'll hear a different theory about what's buried under the ink. They speculate the redactions hide a social death registry. This conspiracy theory posits that JG Club was used to build a database of every leftist student in the country, and the redacted sections explain how the agency used its influence in Japanese industry to ensure those thousands of students were permanently blacklisted from employment, effectively destroying their lives without a single bullet. Then there is the most widespread theory, the harvest of the chosen. This speculation argues that the redactions cover the graduation into government tracking. The theory claims that a large portion of the current Japanese political establishment were JG Club legacy assets, and the redacted files prove that the Japanese Diet was, for decades, a carefully managed CIA garden of former student leaders. A more recent and controversial theory has surfaced in the deep web archives of Tokyo's radical left. They speculate that the heaviest redactions cover the agency's use of JG Club members to infiltrate and sabotage the drug supply chains of radical groups. This theory suggests the CIA introduced tainted narcotics into the Zengakurin supply to induce paranoia and internal violence, using students as the unwitting couriers. Was the JG Club operation a success? Tactically, it was a resounding success. It successfully fractured the student movement, preventing a unified pro-Soviet youth front from destabilizing the Japanese government. Strategically, it was a long-term victory. The program was a success because it nurtured a generation of leaders who viewed the U.S.-Japan alliance as the natural order of things. It successfully provided a moderating force during the violent 1960 ANPO protest. The project successfully created the blueprint for student-based political action programs that the agency would later deploy in South America and Eastern Europe. The success of JGCLUB is seen in the fact that while student movements in Europe often led to radical shifts in policy, the Japanese movement was successfully contained within the halls of academia. It fundamentally secured the ideological anchor of the Pacific during the Cold War. The program was a categorical success in making the pro-Western choice appear as the nationalist choice for the Japanese youth. By 1970, the radical Zengaku-ren had largely collapsed into infighting, a result of the systematic isolation and counter-pressure applied by the agency's student networks. This was an operation that didn't just win a debate, it successfully secured the future of a sovereign nature for the American sphere of influence. The long-term stability of the Liberal Democratic Party in Japan is linked to the stabilization of the universities through these very programs. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs go, the Students' Shield resulted in breakthroughs that define modern influence operations, such as network isolation analysis, the method of identifying and isolating radical nodes within a social network, pioneered in JGCLUB, is now used in modern counter-radicalization algorithms on social media. Front organization conduit architecture, the complex system of using foundations to hide government funding, led to the development of the modern think tank funding models used for international diplomacy. Charismatic leader identification metrics, the psychological tools used to find ideological influencers in Japanese schools, are the direct ancestors to the data analytics tools used in modern political campaigning. And rapid response propaganda deployment. The ability to print and distribute thousands of counter pamphlets overnight evolved into the digital information operation centers used by governments today to counter misinformation in real time. JGCLUB reminds us that the most powerful weapon in the world isn't a bomb, it's a belief. The Students' Shield was built to protect an alliance, but in doing so, it forever altered the trajectory of a nation's youth. In the quiet libraries of Tokyo, the echoes of these funded debates still linger, a testament to a time when the agency decided that the future of the world would be won in the classroom. The shield was held high, and for a generation, the red tide was kept at bay. The invisible hand that guided the student unions of the past is the same hand that shapes the geopolitical consensus of the present. We are living in the classroom that JGCLUB built. The legacy of these clandestine classrooms continues to define the very nature of democratic stability in the Pacific. Even today, the structures of influence established in the 60s remain the silent bedrock of the U.S.-Japan relationship. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and remember, every moment has a master. Now, join us next time as we examine JM Blue. In the vast expanse of the world's oceans, the agency found its most effective cover in the gray holes of the fleet. We'll uncover the secrets of JM Blue, the maritime operations involving the use of the U.S. Navy for CIA cover. It was a partnership where the line between sailor and spy was washed away by the tide. Join us next time for The Silent Fleet. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.